Okay, I found my file. Sorry about that. So I would have this all locked down, and I would have this set up, and I would look and eyeball the gap here, be like, okay, if I put this on this plane, this file is going to cut through, and if I keep it at this angle, it'll eventually cut through and make this the same angle as this, as my piece of wood. So this was just my backstop or fence or whatever you want to call it. And my file was what I used to cut it. And you just put it at an angle, a slight angle, and just very carefully work it in, and don't push it and bind it up. And you could actually cut through and make some pretty clean yo-yos that way. But it is a lot more time consuming, and I don't think it's as repeatable or as symmetrical as a lathe, of course. There's just too many variables. But it worked. It'll get the job done. You can make a decent yo-yo that way. Like my other ones that you saw in there were all made that way, pretty much. And then I got my router. This is my router table. I just took a piece of scrap wood and bolted it on, and this is my router table for making yo-yos. I just lock this in my vise. I have my vacuum cleaner hose duct taped on there nicely just to try to cut down on some of the dust, because that thing just flings it everywhere. So I would, when I got this set up, I would cut the blanks with the hole saw and then just hold them here. Very sketchy, man. It's not much now, but I touched the blade of the router. Don't do it. Keep your hands away from it. It's a stupid way to do it, but it made some nice yo-yos doing it that way. If you're very careful and go very slow and watch what you're doing, and just don't do it. It's just asking for trouble. So now I'm at my lathe. Okay. Let me see if I can set you guys up somewhat. Okay, there you go. That'd actually be a sort of cool angle. Here's my lathe. But anyways, I asked you guys what you wanted, because I got to the point where I have a lot of good yo-yos. I like them. I love all the yo-yos I have. And I like making them. It's really fun. And one of the yo-yos I was giving away to someone online, whoever hit me up and said, man, I wish I could have that yo-yo. That's awesome. I was like, here you go. Send me your address. I'll send it to you. And one of the guys I can't remember his name right now off the top of my head. And I don't want to stop the video to check. I think it's Ginny Cakes or something. It might have been him. Anyways, he's cool. Too, if that isn't. I did trade him something or gave him something, I can't remember. Anyways, I was trading him a yo-yo, and he said, I was giving him a yo-yo, and he's like, how about we trade? And I was like, if you want to, I was just going to give it to you. He's like, no, that's cool. And so he traded me a Wood Z. That was my first timber, and I loved it. Instantly fell in love with it. And then that got me thinking, if people want my yo-yos, I don't really care about making money. I want more cool yo-yos. That's what I want. So I'm after all the things that I can't buy right now, or the money to buy the things I want. But for the most part, what I want is cool yo-yos that I can't buy off Yo-Yo Expert right now. So I decided I would make a big run, ask people what they wanted, and try to make stuff what they wanted, and then I could hopefully trade them for all the stuff I want. So we'll see how that goes. So that's why I'm making these now. All right, so this one is just solid oak. This was from like a late 1800s dinner table leaf. I found this slab of oak. at a secondhand store just for like $1. So I made a lot of stuff out of that one slab, but this is one of the things I made just because it was scrap. But this is not perfectly, and it's wider at this part than here, I could see from there. So it's gonna have a little bit of that, and that's because I've been gluing them and I've been using a spacer. And what I've been using, honestly, is the little stand spacer, the little plastic stands. I don't know if I have any out. I don't have any out here right now, damn it. Anyways, they're 3 millimeters thick. And if you put the little plastic stands, you disassemble them, those plastic pieces are 3 millimeters or just about. And you stick those in between and you clamp them, and you got a perfect 3 millimeter gap that's smooth and straight. It works very nice. The last time I started gluing up these, I was like, oh, well, I have my clamps used in other areas right now, so I can't clamp them all, and I've already got them glued up, so I was just like, they'll be okay. No, they're not. And that's why I have to redo them all. On top of that, I didn't have these chucks that I showed you just at the beginning of the week. So when I was making these, I was using, this is what I was using. I was sticking this where the chuck goes on the headstock. I just put this piece of block that I cut, and I cut rings in, and I was eyeballing the yo-yo, trying to center it on these rings. And then I was sticking it there and spinning it and sanding it. Well, since they weren't perfectly centered, I ovaled them. And it just, between those two things, between the gap not being perfectly parallel and me making them slightly oval just to sand just a tiny bit, they got way more vibe than I feel is acceptable. They're playable, but not that I would want to play with, so I ain't gonna try to pawn these off on anybody. So I'm going to fix them. So what I'm gonna do is cut it in half, and then drill out the axle I have glued in there. And this will be perfectly centered since I have my self-centering chuck. And I could drill the axle hole, and then I could stick a little piece of axle in there and then stick it on this thing, because I just cut a little blank and I used my drill here to make it perfectly center. So now that's perfectly center on there. And I'll use a little bit of double-sided tape, which also the double-sided tape I was using before, all the stuff you find is this foam thick stuff. None of it's flat and hard. So you use this, you stick this on there, and it has a little bit of give because of this foam. Garbage. That just added more wobble, I think. So this stuff seems harder and thinner. So I'm going to give that a try to hold that on there and keep it as straight and perfectly flat as I can. We'll see how that goes. So I will show you the types of yo-yos I'm working on, what I'm working with. You saw the little junk. Then my ones I really like. Everybody said maple and walnut make a great combination. I think even Glenn from Spinworthy, he said put the walnut on the outside and it'll add more weight and density to the outside. So that's why I came up with this one. And I just used the router to get the angles, and then I'll go back and I need to re-round them and smooth them, but I'm going to try to keep it just like that. These little guys here, zebra wood, I thought was really pretty. I love Purple Heart, and the density is awesome. It just cuts well, it sands well, it feels well, it's heavy. I like it a lot. And then everybody wanted oak. You know, oak's cool, but it's everywhere. It's on my kitchen cabinet. So I wasn't too excited, but then I found this stuff. This oak has this unbelievable grain pattern, this like flame that is like holographic, just in these abstract patterns. And so I have zebra wood, purple heart, and that cool oak on the outside. This is another one. You can see that cool patterning, and with the light, it changes how bright it is or dark. They're really cool. So these are nice, and these are going to be the heavier ones, I think, out of what I'm making now. Those things I think are going to end up about 55 to 57 grams. These will be probably upper 40s, I'm thinking. And then I have these guys. I started out, I wanted to make this. I wanted purple heart and yellow heart. That was my goal. That's the one that I personally wanted. And then I was like, yeah, that's really cool, but what if we alternate them and then have purple, yellow, purple, yellow? And I was like, that'd be cool. I don't know how it's gonna work. Testing these out, it works really well. The balance is fine. It doesn't really affect, I mean, I'm sure this half is slightly lighter than this half, probably, because of where the yellow heart and purple heart is, but they're close enough on the Jenka scale that the density is pretty close. So I think it's okay. And I just think it looks cool. And that way when you'll loop or whatever, it'll go purple, yellow, you know, I don't know, stupid, cool. So, and these I think will be the middleweight. So it'll be lightweight, middleweight, and heavyweight. And yeah, that's where I am right now. So I have to fix all these. I have to find a way to cut them in half without gouging anything. And then I could put them in my chuck and drill them and sand them and do that whole thing all over again. So when I get to that, I will show you that. But right now, that's all I'm set up for. So.